hello everybody. So I'm very happy to see all of you here today and share mainly my thoughts and ideas and research results. Yeah, I've had over the last weeks and months. I think we all have the same challenge now and in the future, when things hopefully get back to normal or closer to normal over the next month. Sorry, and I think we will have more and more hybrid meetings. We have also heard other talks here, especially the one from the GCB and ERINEX, and some others were involved regarding the future of events. And I think it's clear for everyone that we will mainly have hybrid events in the future, that we have much less pure on-site, pure physical events that have no online component and no online participants. And with this in mind, I have thought a lot about so how can we bring participants together in the future, because they will have a big physical distance. Some of them will take part at the Congress at the screen. The other ones will be in a venue. So what could we do to bring them together, and what positive effects and what advantages this has for especially knowledge sharing in the future, for knowledge conservation in the future? That will also be a big part of my thoughts and my presentation. Not only communication, but what can we make out of it? So what are the benefits we have by combining this communication? So then I would say let's start. If anyone has a question, please feel free to raise your hand at any time. And to keep it a little bit more interactive, because we will talk about interactivity, I have also some questions for you today. So I will raise them. Angela will unlock the polls then when it's time. So hopefully you're ready to go. So we'll start. So yeah, as announced, we will talk about communication first. And communication. I like communication theory. I have dealt with communication theory over the last month, several times. And I will pick two specific parts of communication theory today because they're relevant for us. It's the synchronous and asynchronous communication, and of course, offline and online, the ways of communication which are relevant for us in hybrid meetings. So when we talk about synchronous and asynchronous communication, what does that mean in detail? So only the basic facts here, synchronous, asynchronous. With synchronous communication is the communication we have, with a direct response. So that's the main point when you can say that synchronous communication. You get a direct response. You have a high reliability because you will get a response. You are talking face to face in a chat, something like that. So you see your next person you are talking to. And the downside is it requires some communication skills. And of course, there are people out there who don't have the best communication skills. That could be things like you're a thinker, so you're not spontaneous. You need some time to think about things, especially when it comes to professional communication or scientific conversation. Or you do not know the language. That could also be or you do not know it well. So you have language barriers. So that are all barriers and downsides of synchronous communication. And asynchronous communication, on the other side, you have other downsides. For example, you have no reliability. Asynchronous communication means you send a message to somewhere and you're not sure if you will ever get an answer. And if you get an answer, you do not know when you will get an answer. But on the other side, that's easier for people who are maybe not good in direct communication, in synchronous communication. You can translate your message you want to send as an answer. You can think about things and you can post your answer later on, or maybe you have no time currently and you can take time later on. So that's the good thing about asynchronous communication. And all of us are using both kinds of communication. I think when you see the definitions, of course, you know which communication is which. We will come to that later on. So that's the, let's say, theoretical background for now. So from that perspective, let's see first how we communicate offline. And basically, we have two different kinds of communication. We can have a unidirectional communication, which means I tell you something and do not get a response in general. And then we have this synchronous and asynchronous communication. So which communication do we have there in the offline world? Of course, the asynchronous communication, classical, a letter. You can send a letter somewhere. You do not know if there ever comes an answer and when it comes. So in the synchronous area, for example, there are only examples. You can have more examples of that. You can have a speech, a presentation. Also singing, for example, is kind of communication, and of course discussion, all those things. So you are using your voice in the offline world for synchronous communication, and in the asynchronous part you are using writing or something like that. So, and when we now get interactive, so not only simply sending out a message, what happens there, which channels are used there? It's pretty simple. It's the same. So if you write a letter, you will get a letter back. If you talk to someone, it's most likely that he will respond with his voice to you. So I think it's not the main case that you talk to someone and get a letter back. So that could be, but mainly it's the same. It's the same medium. So this is what happens in the offline world, and I would say it's pretty simple. You can understand that very easily. When it comes to the online world, I think things get more complex. And the first question I have for you, and would like to ask you to answer this simply in the chat by typing, is which online communication channels and services are you using on a regular basis? So it's so it doesn't have to be complete. It's simply like getting an idea. So please do it right now. So my main challenge is to find the chat. So I have only the controls. Ah, there it is. Just need to open another window. So yeah, please type it for everyone to see, so that we get an idea. Thank you. So I think I give you 1 minute. That's enough for you to type the most important things. And what we start to see is, of course, there are common channels like WhatsApp, but we see there are a lot of additional things. Yeah, so we have WeChat used by only one person or only some persons. Zoom, of course, everyone. We have people using Skype, email, so Teams. So what we see is there are very different services, platforms, ways to communicate online. I think I can proceed here at this point, and would like to view at the same diagram with you when it comes to online communication. So what do we have here? So I have divided this into 2 steps to not get overwhelmed directly. So the first one is, let's go through the sectors of this diagram. When we talk about unidirectional asynchronous communication in our business, we have things like on-demand video, we have things like e-learning that's unidirectional, goes into one direction, you do not get a response back, and it's asynchronous because everyone can watch it, use it when they want to see it. The unidirectional synchronous way is the live stream, of course, and when you add Q&A or a chat to a live stream, then you have directly an interactive thing. And you see here, it's very common to have the way in one direction in a video signal, and the way back in Q&A is text writing. So that means you are combining different channels, different communication channels, different ways of communication. Of course, we have the webinar, we have also meetings like this one. And the asynchronous interactive was, I would say, one of the first services in the internet. Was email, it was use groups, which were the predecessor of internet forums. So this is what we have here. So we see already now more complexity. Then I have added some services which have maybe nothing to do with that what's written before. Walls.io, for example, as a social wall service, collecting information from different social medias and just presenting it and without the chance to answer. So that's a asynchronous unidirectional thing. We have Zoom and Wanda for synchronous interactive communication. We have things like Reddit as one of the biggest internet forums, for example. So, but there are a lot of services missing, especially the ones you mentioned in your answers. So what about that? And they are all located here. They serve all 4 quadrants of the diagram, and that is what makes them complex, because you can do any communication in different mediums: text, speech, video, pure audio, in the same platform, and this makes communication complex. So then we have some smaller things like WhatsApp, in the interactive part, not covering all of them. Also Vimeo. Vimeo is more the, let's say unidirectional thing until it comes to Vimeo events where you have a chat and an interactive part. But you see, most services serve 2 or more possible fields of communication. And this is a very, very important thing we need to know when we talk about or think about online communication and the differences to offline communication. Online communication in general is much more complex than offline communication. So that's the basic finding I think we can agree on. And of course, this gives us a challenge. And the biggest challenge itself is the complexity of digital communication, which has positive and negative aspects. So let's start with the good things. So of course, we have new ways of communication. We have new opportunities, and so we haven't had before in pure offline communication channels, mediums. Interactivity can get extremely high, especially in those platforms supporting all ways of communication. We see that, of course, interactive communication is taking the far biggest part. So you have only smaller parts with unidirectional communication. And you have all this individual communication preferences taken into account. So you can use the channel, the medium you prefer, and you can still be part of the platform. And Facebook, you can post, or Instagram, you can of course post your videos, but you can simply post memes or text messages or something like that. That's all possible. So you can express yourself in the way you would like to do it. Of course, the downsides are that all the persons that are involved can get easily be overwhelmed by all this complexity. Of course, this complexity needs to be managed or handled somehow by you or by all the persons involved in communication. Also, if you have a look into social media or into chats, of course, this high interactivity may lead to a very chaotic communication, which in the very end makes it very difficult to identify relevant or important information from this communication streams. If you have a long discussion on Facebook, of course, with hundreds of comments, of course, you cannot even have a clue what's now in there. So you will not read all the comments. So that, of course, makes it very, very complex, and you can oversee things. And from this background, I would like to ask you, how do you feel with online communication? Do you feel safe and confident when using online communication services? Yeah, so I just try to get this window down. I've not enough screens. Yeah, so the answers, I think, Angela, have you already activated the poll? Because I don't see it, but I think it could be an issue of screens. Ah, there it is. Yeah. So yeah, how do you feel about it? So yes, you're using the service naturally and feel comfortable, or yeah, let's say kind of. So in general, you use online communication services in job, private life, but you sometimes feel overwhelmed, which is, I think, natural. You use them only if necessary, or you do not really use them, or you are too feared of them, or even don't like IT-based communication or systems at all. So I would kindly ask you to simply answer this question. So now I just need to find the results. Angela, do you see the results? Because I'm currently trying to find them, but I don't see them.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that. Just bear with me. It's saying fail to share poll. Another poll has started or shared. I'm going to try again.
Okay.
Download results.
Yeah, okay. That sounds good.
But what I'll do is I will just say, I will talk it through. So okay. It's really resoundingly 53%.
Yeah, great.
So it's yes, I'm using various online communication services naturally and feel comfortable. And then it's 20%, 20%, and 12% for the other parts.
Okay. Yeah, great. So from that perspective, I had this talk already in German for the GCB, and there was kind of different. It was more B than A. So maybe this is something we discover in Germany in general, that Germans are not so confident and safe and early adopters of technology than maybe others, international guests we have during our congresses. Thank you very much. So I just wanted to have kind of picture. So where you stand. So let's say a good half of us has learned maybe a lot of things over the last 18 months and is very confident in using, and in some 75% are say okay, we are fine with that in general, and we are trying to make the very best out of the situation and using the online communication channels. So when it now comes to multi-channel communication, so online communication is multi-channel communication, much more than offline communication. I think so. So I now, let's say, go into the direction of the practical use of what we have heard so far. I have written down some questions you should ask yourself when it comes to the online part of the communication for your events. The first one is really ask yourself, do we really need synchronous and asynchronous communication at the same time? Because asynchronous communication is great to save communication and to preserve it, but it makes it more complex. So from that perspective, if you don't really need it, then skip it. So that counts for all of those questions. Then a very, very important thing is which are the relevant communication channels for your target groups. So what we currently do is before every Congress, so we go through all those social media platforms, for example, and we say yes, maybe no, for all the participants. There are events where we do not even post one post on Facebook because we know the target group is on LinkedIn and not on Facebook. And same is for Twitter, for Instagram, all those platforms. Think about which platforms you should really address for your target groups. So that reduces complexity for you and makes you even more successful, because what you often do is paid posts in platforms that are not used by your target group, maybe. So that's a waste of money. So then more focus on the platforms you should address and spend the money there and get more participants for your events. Close thing is which communication platforms are used by your target group. I think so the relevant for your group and actively used are two different things. They are very close, but you should distinguish. So the first one could be interesting for advertising, and if you want to get them involved, then you need the second question or the third question here in the list. Where are they active? So which platform do they really use and not only consuming, for example, because platform or a communication channel is not only social media. So there are also other things. And then, of course, out of this pool of platforms, of tools you now have identified, ask yourself, okay, are there mediums, platforms, channels that allow me to enable analog and digital communication? Things like combining Facebook Live, for example. Facebook Live, you can bring in, of course, your video recordings and put it into a Facebook group, something like that. Also, YouTube is kind of a channel that offers you that. Just think about those things before you, or at the very beginning of the planning phase of your hybrid event. So which channels, which online channels you need to use. And then I've already mentioned that we will talk about what remains. So asynchronous communication helps us in sustainability of knowledge. And what does it mean in general? Of course, the asynchronous communication empowers on-demand contents, because currently I see a lot of events which simply provide the on-demand recordings of their live sessions, and that's it. So the question is that really useful? Does it give benefit, or can we do this better in the future? And with asynchronous communication, the easiest thing is, of course, you have a conservation of questions and answers, and of course you can display it besides the recorded video. So that's the very simple solution. But what about giving the speakers the chance to answer questions after the live event? And give the participants the chance to raise questions when they watch the on-demand video. And in the very end, you could reuse those questions and answers, for example, for e-learning courses, generate new content from existing content, generate more beneficial content from the existing contents. So this is all you can, this asynchronous communication brings with it. And my question before I tell you what I think will happen is what do you think? So what will happen in the nearer future? We're talking about the nearer future, not far away. Let's say the next month, next 12 months maybe. How will a participant visit communication change? With focus on maybe also hybrid events in the nearer future from your point of view. So you expect that participants participants will return to old communication patterns. That's A, or B, communication using video conferences and webinars will stay at a high level, like now or near now. C is the usage of synchronous, asynchronous communication channels and services will continue to significantly increase. Or D, we will need to find completely new ways and mediums of communication. And we'll leave that open for half a minute so that you have the chance to answer. Yeah, great. I see we see the big direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's mainly C. Thank you very much. So now we can talk about, so presentation is back, I think. So you see it. Then we will continue. So let me tell you what I think. I'm mainly on your side. I think C, with a slight touch in the D direction, will happen in the nearer future. I think in the farer future we will tend much more in direction of D, so that we will find completely new ways and mediums of communication. What I expect is a sustainable change of behavior and of communication behavior. So what we need to keep in mind is that asynchronous communication is not as strange or unusual as some of us maybe, or some of the participants maybe think in the when it comes to online communication, because of course asynchronous communication is as human as synchronous communication is a spoken word. Since the first invention, or since the invention of the first picture writings. So that was the first asynchronous communication we had, picture writings or just markings in stones, something like that. And of course, humans started, or we all started, not only 18 months ago, but also earlier when the World Wide Web was invented. We started to learn to use this new mixture of communication channels, more meaningful, efficient, systematic, and this will continue because especially that the younger generations who grew up now. So we have now the first generation out there, which turns 20, who have always seen digital devices and digital communication. So I think I'm one of the last generation that had both. So had no internet in the very beginning, and then with starting of their youth, had also the start of the internet. So that's the 40s and down to the now 30s. So and all under this age have always seen digital communication and are using this naturally. So I see this with my kids. My youngest son is 2 years old and finds finds services and things on my phone I even didn't know. So he's just playing around and does things with the phone. So so they have a natural approach to that, and this will of course influence all the events and all the communication we have in the future. So, and what I now think is for all the ones that are still on their way, especially we should contribute to this learning process, because we have the chance now to show them what's possible, to help them in communication online asynchronously. I think that should be maybe a secondary objective for our events. So, and we should transport this to our clients, to our customers, who are the organizers of the event, or the hosts of the event. We are the organizers, they are the hosts. So we should make this clear to them that they have not only responsibility when it comes to the knowledge, to the science, or if it's business, to their core business, but also to this learning, how to use or how to communicate, how to improve communication in this digital world. I think that's one very big point for me personally, and I think we should accept this, that this will be the case in the future. So now, after having talked about theory and expectations a lot, I would of course guide you a little bit or give you some ideas. How can this be practically used or make it happen in your events? So the first thing I think is go back to the roots. So as I mentioned, use groups were one of the first parts of the internet. Even before the World Wide Web was invented, use groups were there, and use groups were nothing else than a forum, an internet forum, and the chats. So use them. Yeah. So replace, for example, your classical Q&A you have in the apps from 2 years ago, or you have next to your video screen right now. Replace it by a forum. Replace it by a chat. This is what we're currently planning, that we put in there some forums. You have a topic per session, and then you can access all the sessions in the big forum, and below the session stream you have only this topic. When you're using this, of course, you need to allow everyone to place or raise a question and also an answer, not only maybe the ones who are sitting there and having their presentation. Of course, that's the first that's the first target when it comes to questions, but maybe you can start a conversation, a discussion about those topics after the live session has ended, directly below the on-demand video. That would be possible with the forum thread. And also you can allow upload of user-generated content, which means short video, images, audio, things like that. That could all be part of this forum thread. And this leads to one question, because currently we have the Q&A. You can raise your question. You have a moderator, you have a chair, a session chair who's moderating which question will be shown, which question is allowed. And now I think we should think about the World Wide Web. Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web with one big goal. He wanted to bring knowledge and information to everyone, and giving everyone the chance to empower democracy by contributing to discussions. And the first thing we do with the World Wide Web is start moderating it. I just ask you to, or please you to think about this. So at the very end, of course, you have a lot of ways, and the forums and the chats are only the first step to have big advantages for your on-demand content. So you can enrich your content you already have, the video streams, after your congress, after your event, by simply adding a discussion, adding opinions to that. And to be honest, usually we are talking about closed user groups. We are talking about Congress participants. We are talking about scientists, or we are talking about employees of a company when it comes to business events, or partners of a company. I do not really expect things that are happening on Facebook or something else, that you get trash communication, that you get trash discussions, because we are talking about a closed user group. They know each other. I think that's something completely different to an open platform like Facebook, Twitter, or something like that, so that we even maybe can reduce the moderation or even can drop the moderation. Of course, we need to think about the formats. So what works in the offline world, what works in the online world, and find maybe a solution in the other worlds. So of course we have workshops, seminars, discussions in the offline world, and we started to transport them to the online world by using Zoom meetings or something like that. Question for the future is, what could we do there? Maybe stop using Zoom. Use things like Teams, like Adobe Connect. Use tools that really allow collaboration, that really allow you to work together in a workshop, and not only one person talking, the others need to listen. So especially Teams and Adobe Connect, also Google Meetup, allows you to use whiteboards, allows you to share contents, everything those things. So that is not possible in Zoom, for example. Yeah, so just look for collaboration software, not only video meetings. Make, for example, e-posters even more interactive. Use new channels. Use things, for example, like Twitch. Make an online video Q&A through Twitch, where everyone could go, or WonderMe, or other open video chats, for example. This is what we have done in our last events. Is we simply set up an open video chat room and then placed discussions in there. So we said, okay, at 2 p.m. everyone's going there discussing those posters. So the poster authors are there. You can discuss with them in a video chat. Just make them more interactive. And everything you have now in the online world, like breakout rooms or satellites, bring them also offline. So what you could do is use mobile room setups, for example, to create breakout rooms or breakout spaces in a venue. So use a similar principle in the offline world, on site in the venue, and also support your digital strategy of on-demand contents, which should simply, let's say, let live your live content longer. You could also support this by smaller meetings, for example, satellite events at different places, different times, weeks after, months after, in preparation for the next Congress, for example. Smaller group meetings for the participants of a Congress to give your on-demand content more relevance, or maybe create new content over the year and not only at the Congresses. That will also be part of the strategy to bring the online and offline community together. And also those overflows at Congresses. So I know that. So you have overflow rooms, something like that. Ask yourself if you really need them, because if you have a hybrid Congress, the simplest thing would be everyone who's not sitting into the room, just ask them to use their phone and the Wi-Fi to watch the session online, because they have the same tools there. They have the Q&A. They can raise their questions as if they were in the room. That's the simplest thing to save space, for example, also in a venue. And maybe use the overflow rooms as new rooms for communication, for breakouts, things like that. And then one thing I came across over the last weeks and months a lot is the VR, AR, MR discussion. So I personally come from video gaming. I have developed video games for 7 years. I know what VR, AR, MR is, and this is why I say VR, AR, MR today does not work online. You can use it offline. You can use it in an exhibition. An exhibitor can present you his things there in VR. But the issue is how many of you have a VR device at home? Oculus Rift, Microsoft HoloLens. How many of you have such a device at home? I would say nearly no one. Maybe if you are a hardcore gamer like me, I have an Oculus Rift, but maybe no one of you. So that means your audience cannot use the VR services at home. They simply cannot use them. So it's wasted money to provide it if you have a pure virtual event. So I think so for now, this is a part for on-site for me. Maybe in the future. So if things so Google was too early. The Google glasses were a cool idea, but was too early. So they found no early adopters, or only few early adopters. Maybe if we have such a thing in the future, which is affordable for people. So because a Microsoft HoloLens costs $2,000, $2,500 currently, so you will not buy it at home. But in the future, if we have things like the Google glasses, then we can talk about augmented reality and mixed reality, even in venues. Then we can talk about, do we need signs everywhere, or can we simply put it to the glasses? If you reach a certain point, then you get the information where to go next. If you look into into a direction, you see what's happening there. So this is the future, but I think it's not the nearer future. So then we're talking about hybrid network areas. I think that is one of the main points we should discuss, and how we make this happen, from a data privacy perspective. Very easy setup could be all of you are using e-posters at events. So you have terminals, you have big screens, they have a speaker. Why not just attach a webcam on that? Have a small application starting an open video room, and everyone who gets to this area and feels to join an online conversation simply jumps into a room. Maybe you have a list how many people are in this chat room, and then they can start talk with online participants. That is a very easy solution you can do with hardware you already have. A much more important point there is, I think, is give room for communication in terms of time. Yeah, so this is what we see in online congresses. If you have a packed schedule that leaves you no time for communication, of course you will not have communication. And if you now would like to have communication between two worlds, of course you need even more time for communication. Very important thing for your on-site participants is to fully integrate all your online services into the conference app. Because if you do not integrate it into the mobile solution, the on-site participants have no chance to use it. If you have only in the browser, it's hard for them because nobody is running around with this notebook at a congress. Maybe a tablet that gives you most of the services, but they need to be usable on the phone. And also integrate with those open platforms your audience is using. Yeah? So try to connect somehow to things like YouTube, to things like Facebook. Use the channels they use, because then you have less work to establish new channels for them. And it's always harder to bring in new services than use the ones they are used to use. So, and then what I already mentioned with the satellite events, continuing support is very important. First thing is maintain and support your event platform after the event, not last day of the event, stop it, you're gone, you don't care about it anymore because there's only on-demand content and that's it. I think that should change in the future if you want to attract customers for your events in general, especially if you have not one event, but one event per year. Then you need to maintain this community, and the first step is to maintain your platform and keep the communication up. Yeah? So this is the main reason why you should maintain your platform, to keep communication between participants and between you and participants up over the entire year until the next event happens, or 6 months until the next event happens. And provide the default communication platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn, whatsoever. We have talked about that now several times, with content, not only with advertising. So don't just push advertisement. Give them content, give them purpose, give them a reason to click on it and really come to your platform, come back to your platform. Give them real content. Yeah, and this in result, this helps you to build, grow, and support real communities. Create communities around your events. Some associations, of course, have the advantage they already have a community, but also a lot of them think they have a community. A group of members is not automatically a community. So it's like with your colleagues. A team of or a group of co-workers is not automatically a team. So there's no automatic things in there. You need to work to achieve this. And that's it from my side. Yeah, so I received the first question, or we received the first question. Feel free to raise more questions. I will answer the first one. That's hard. So the 5 ROI or benefits of virtual hybrid events. Okay. So if you do it right, I think the first thing is in general, if you go hybrid, of course you attract more people than if you are on site, because the first thing is you give people the chance to attend the meeting that haven't had the chance in the past for various reasons. That could be travel regulations, that could be financial reasons, that could be so many things, and you could now give them the chance to attend the meeting by attending it online. I think that's we have seen a lot of meetings who had much more participants when they went virtual than before. I think that is one of the big advantages. And if we now establish the new services, then I think yeah, new communication ways, new communication service, we can even attract more people like this. The next thing is if you do hybrid, you already have all the contents, yeah, let's say saved, captured. You can use it on demand, of course. If there is not really a need to record all the videos if you do not go hybrid. And if you record the videos, even if you do not go hybrid, then you could directly start to stream them. Then it doesn't make sense to record everything and not streaming it to the internet, because streaming is not too expensive. I think that's one of the big advantages or benefits. I don't know if I get 5 directly right now. Maybe we can exchange by email later on. But I think one of the very big benefits is what I mentioned in the presentation. So you have your content available for different purposes. You can create e-learnings out of it. We have the first customers associations who sell the content, who give the content for the participants maybe 6 weeks after the Congress. You can use the content 6 weeks or offer the content 6 weeks for free for all the participants, and after that they offer the content only for their members, or especially they can sell it for no members, or they can try to attract more persons to get a member or become a member, to become a member, because they have access to this content then yeah, for a longer period. For example, they also start to create e-learnings out of it. If you have interesting sessions, of course you can create e-learning courses out of it easily, and you have even more yeah, even more content, and which can bring you more members, more clients, more customers, something like that. So you can monetize this content you have, and those are the things we should think about more in the future. What can we not only, so to have this content is cool, but what can we make out of it? I think this is also one of our jobs, because what I learned personally and what we learned at CPO Hansa and Globit is most associations don't really get it, don't really get the point. So I hope that was enough for the first.
What I suggested, Sebastian, there is if anybody else has any ideas, they can just put it in chat.
Yeah. So I think
answering
we have
that question. One. That will help Miguel a little. So if anybody has anything else that you'd like to put in. But I think you covered a lot there in your answers, Sebastian.
Yeah, that's great. So question to Alberto, is this a new question? So
do you think this presentation applies to exhibitors?
Kind of. So in general, exhibitors, of course, are a special thing at conferences, because especially for them, of course, a hybrid meeting means in general they need to put in more money, because they need a booth on site and they need something virtual. But what I currently try to think about is, so I'm not at the very end of this, but I started thinking about this. How can we make this more attractive to them? that they maybe do not have too many extra costs and have a benefit out of it. What I currently think is, what you easily could do is in the web, in the online part, you do not have your booth anymore, your 3D booth anymore. If it's not necessary, you simply have something like a microsite, like simply an info center where you can place all your contents, which looks more like a portal than like a 3D booth. And this site could be easily integrated to your booth by big screens, touch screens, something like that, where the visitors of your booth can simply browse to the contents you can access as an online participant. The only thing you are missing as an online participant then is you do not have the booth, you cannot get the coffee, but you can get the information. And here it's most important that you offer them as an exhibitor, that you offer them information they cannot get everywhere else. Yeah, so you need to give them real content, beneficial content. If I, as a visitor, if I can simply go to the website of the exhibitor and on the starting page, I see the same information like on the booth, I have no need to go to the virtual booth or to the virtual information center. So there need to be content that is, for example, only accessible there for maybe 4 weeks. It's enough. And after the 4 weeks, I can easily put it onto the website of the exhibitor itself. But try to convince them to create beneficial content, place it in a kind of portal, in a kind of microsite, which is accessible for the online participants. Then they do not need to create a booth. We also discovered that content is much more important online than how it looks like. Yeah? So portal where you can see a lot of contents on the same page is much more efficient than a booth where you have a limited area, where you have small icons, where you cannot even see on the first look what's in there for me as a visitor. And combine this with your booth at the venue, where you simply have some touch screens where you can place your visitors in front of, and they can simply browse through the content you have accessible for the online participant. That's an easy solution that doesn't create too much extra costs.
Thank you, Sebastian.
So do we have any more questions for Sebastian?
So either I have answered all questions before or they are overwhelmed. No, so there is a reason why I put my email address in there. So I know this topic is complex, so I'm thinking about this now for months, and I do not feel like I'm at any end, something like that. There are always new aspects that come in there. So if you feel like discussing things afterwards, feel free to contact me, and I'm happy to discuss those things with you.
That's great, Sebastian. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise and for sharing this all with everybody today.
Yeah, thank you for attending. Also for your active participation in the polls. So yeah, if there are no more questions, I wish you good day, good evening,